Here we are once again in the basement studio.
And we are listening to excellent music.
Yeah, we've been kind of on one tonight, haven't we?
Yeah.
And today's kind of an interesting one. But first of all, welcome to Classic Vinyl Podcast. This is Justin and Tyler live from the basement studio. And we're going to do kind of a deep cut today. It's a Doors song called I Will Never Be Untrue. And I would think if you're not a Doors fan, you probably have never heard this song before. And even some casual Doors fans probably have never heard this song before. But being the big Doors fan that I am, I really didn't want to leave this one off. So I think I know the answer to this. Tyler, what is your history with this song previous to today?
Oh, previous to today, I was completely foreign.
So you've never heard this song other than the two times we listened to it?
Not till 5 minutes ago. Yep.
Okay, well, let's get after it. I'm going to give you a little history on the band The Doors. They are obviously a American rock band formed in Los Angeles, California in 1965. Jim Morrison obviously met Ray Manzarek from UCLA Film School. You got Jim and Ray met up later, and Jim told Ray he'd been writing lyrics. He sang in Moonlight Drive just like he did in the movie, and they decided to form a band. And, of course, that band is Jim Morrison on vocals, Ray Manzarek on keyboards, Robbie Krieger on guitar, and John Densmore on drums. Now, Jim Morrison, he came up with the band name. It was straight from an Aldous Huxley book named The Doors of Perception. The Doors sound is pretty interesting. It seems like the Doors are kind of a polarizing group in one way. It seems like people either love them or hate them. There's not too many in between, but they have a lot of sounds of rock, jazz, blues, psychedelia. You've got Morrison's baritone, dark eroticism, pseudo-poetic lyrics. You definitely have to like the keyboard
to
like the Doors. And what's really strange is I'm not loving of the keyboard, but if you've listened to this podcast before, you know my favorite band in the whole wide world's the Beatles. Well, my first band, my first love really was the Doors, and they still hold that place in my heart. I think the Doors are kind of in that vein with the Beatles, is where the Beatles in 7 short years, the amount of music they released. Well, the Doors in 4 short years and 6 albums released some pretty damn good music, in my opinion, too. But obviously that's your decision to decide. But the Doors, they were originally a house band for the LA club London Fog, and then they later became the house band for the famous Whiskey A Go-Go there on the Sunset Strip. They were signed by Elektra Records in August of 1966. Now, all in all, they've released 6 studio albums while Morrison was alive, 2 studio albums after his death, with yet Robbie and Ray taking on the vocal responsibilities. They've released 2 soundtrack albums, 21 compilation albums, 21 singles, and 8 box sets, and on and on and on, 40th and 50th, and I'm sure they'll release 60th anniversary editions, and of course, Justin buys all of them because he's a completist.
Yes, you do.
But they did release 1 poetry album post Jim Morrison's death called An American Prayer that went platinum in 1978. In the U.S., all 6 of their studio albums with Morrison reached the top 10, which is a pretty big feat, really. So their self-titled debut album, released in 1967, reached number 2 in the charts. It's 5 times platinum, and it has their most successful single, Light My Fire. Probably one of my least favorite Doors songs, and that's probably just because of not overplay, but seriously overplay, not only on the radio, but by Justin.
Well, you cannot petition the Lord in prayer.
Well, that's a different album. So their second album, Strange Days, reached number 3 on the charts. Waiting for the Sun, the third album, reached number 1. Soft Parade, number 6. That's kind of the album that was a departure, had a little bit of softer sound, had brass and strings, and wasn't very well liked at the time, but has become kind of a cult classic. I enjoy it just being its own thing. But Morrison Hotel reached number 4. LA Woman, number 9. All the other albums reached platinum, but LA Woman is 3 times platinum as well. So the debut album and their final album with Morrison both are multi-platinum albums. In the UK, 4 of their albums hit the top 50, with Waiting for the Sun hit number 16, and Morrison Hotel, which was their second to last album, was their top charting album in the UK at number 12. So in Canada, they had all 6 albums in the top 50, 3 in the top 20. Waiting for the Sun hit number 3, Soft Parade number 4, Morrison Hotel number 3, and LA Woman number 12. They've had several greatest hits and compilation albums hit the top 100 as well. But that happens, I guess, when you keep releasing them. In the U.S., 15 of their singles hit the top 100. Only 3 of their singles hit the top 10, with Light My Fire, Hello, I Love You both hitting number 1. The song Touch Me hit number 3. In the UK, they had 4 singles in the top 50, with Light My Fire being their top charting song at number 7. And in Canada, 12 of their singles hit the top 50, with 6 being in the top 10. People Are Strange, Hello, I Love You, and Touch Me all hit number 1, with Light My Fire hitting number 2 and Love Her Madly charting at number 3. They're the first American band ever to have 8 consecutive selling gold albums.
Wow.
It's pretty decent, and they've sold over 100 million albums worldwide. And, you know, they did have a movie made about them in 1991. Anyone close to the band says the movie's complete horseshit about Morrison, about the band, and it's fictionalized, which that's what you do in movies. Mm-hmm. I can say this much about it. It's got good music in it. I thought Val Kilmer did an excellent job playing Morrison, and it's really what got me into the Doors. So if anything, it's worth it to me, but it would be nice to see a good series or something put together on the Doors, if there could be.
I'm surprised that they haven't done another one.
Yeah, they've done several documentaries and things, but I think a theatrical release or something would be good.
A dramatization, yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be well worth it. And I think we're always talking about these bands that were popular in the 60s and 70s and don't make it till today. The Doors are stronger today than they ever were. They're more popular today than they ever were. So they're one of the bands that for some reason stood the test of time. And, you know, Morrison's death in 1971, he died in Paris of heart failure. And I think that really strengthened the band's legacy in many ways because that burst their popularity forward. And then I think the movie coming out in the early 90s really pushed their popularity again as well. So they were inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1993. They're definitely one of my favorite bands. The kind of things I say and do on this podcast, I probably shouldn't like the Doors just because they're not a heavy guitar driven band. They've got a lot of keyboard, a lot of organ, you know, and they're not a heavy band, but I enjoy them and they hold a special place in my heart. But so, do you want to get to the song?
I do.
And now it's time for the song review.
So, of course, like I said, we're doing the Doors and a song called I Will Never Be Untrue. It's one there's not a lot of information out there about. It's not one that ever made an album. The first I heard this, I think, was on their 97 box set, I believe, that had a portion of it, and then they released a little later. But this is a song written and sang by Jim Morrison. It was originally recorded in the studio on February 25th of 1969. So this song was actually written and recorded for the Morrison Hotel album, but it was left off for whatever reason. I don't know if they just didn't like the finished product or they didn't finish the product. I don't know. It was recorded at Elektra Sound Recorders in Los Angeles, California, produced by Paul Rothchild originally, but the new release version was produced by Bruce Botnick. It is included with their unreleased song Paris Blues that come out in 2022. That's the first time a more full version of this song come out. There is a live version that was on a Live at the Aquarius Theater album, and it was included on their box set like I spoke earlier in 1997. It was just a little short version of it with some studio talk with it as well. So you can tell it's not finished, but on the Morrison, I believe the remastered version that came out in 2020, Morrison Hotel, there was a version of it included on that as well. It's hard to keep track of all those, but this song is really about Jim's, let's say, not so truthful poetry about being true to his girl and not staying out too late till 2:30, like he says in the lyrics. I think this is a good song to kind of show Morrison had a good heart on him and meant well, but I think his demons took over a lot of the time.
Yeah, there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek in this, and you can kind of hear it in him.
Yeah, you can hear it, but it's a good song. So after sitting down and listening to this song for the first time and listening to it twice, what are your thoughts on this song from the Doors?
It's a shame that this song is not more commonly known. And this is a really sweet little love song, and yet fundamentals. It opens with is it an acoustic guitar?
No, it's an electric guitar.
Electric? Okay. Yeah. I couldn't really tell because it sounded almost as raw as the acoustic.
I think he's just playing it straight into his amp. I don't think he's got any effects or anything on it like that.
That must be why it sounded, because I couldn't quite tell. But it's a guitar open, and then the vocals start, and then the percussion joins in, finally with the bass and the keyboard. So for a keyboard-heavy band, the keyboard's kind of the last one on. The guitar's beautiful. And the bass is real good and heavy in this. It's a nice, slow, rolling rhythm, very bluesy. Yeah, just a sweet little song about, the promises that this guy's making to his girl, that he's never going to be untrue to her. He's always going to treat her kind, always going to do the right thing. And come to find that he just, he means well, but his personality just is not able to live up to the promises that he's making. So he's not able to keep up or live up to these promises, but he's making those promises. And there's a little bit of a jab at that, in that he's like, well, I promise not to stay out drinking any later than 2:30, He does mean well, but then he also flips the script like, well, if you ever decide to leave me, then to walk away, I just want you to know you're going to be leaving the best friend you've ever had. If he's given her cause to leave, then maybe he's not the best friend she's ever had, but that's kind of inferred as well. It's just kind of a nice, sweet little rolling love song that's real bluesy and optimistic and hopeful, but also it seems to acknowledge that he's got shortcomings.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think he means well, and I think it's his true feelings, and I think he's laying it out there, but he is completely aware that he does have those shortcomings, and he's probably not going to live up to these promises, but he's going to write you a beautiful song.
He sure is. So those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts on this one, Justin?
From the very first time I heard this in 97, I enjoyed this song, and it made me wonder why this was left off an album. Morrison Hotel is one of my favorite albums of theirs. It kind of, in a way, a comeback to them and kind of getting into the more bluesy, which this song kind of is bluesy.
So it would fit.
It's just kind of a soul and slow love song that gives that bluesy feeling. The guitar kicks into it. It's pretty much a simple E minor chord on the strum that Robbie's doing there. And you've got Morrison's crooning, his sultry baritone voice, right? He's got that baritone timbre that just, it's been said that even Frank Sinatra was kind of jealous of Morrison's voice, which I can see that. Morrison's not a trained singer. In fact, he was kind of a reluctant singer at the first, and even when they were playing some of the clubs, would famously sing with his back to the crowd because he was not comfortable with it. But he's a good singer for what it is, and as you said, the guitar is the main focus in this, and the bass. Now, the bass, I know Ray would play bass on a bass keyboard live, but they generally use session players. I know Ray Neapolitan is the guy who played bass on the Morrison Hotel sessions, so I'm guessing that's who's playing the bass on this. I don't know. It doesn't sound like it's Ray's keyboard, but I'm sure it's Ray Neapolitan if it was done during the Morrison Hotel sessions. But even the keyboard from Ray, and you spoke that it comes in last, it's also used very minimally in this, in the background. And I don't know if that's on purpose. I don't know if it just wasn't finished and mixed, who knows, but I enjoy the way it's used because you just kind of get a tiny bit of creepy feeling from it, and it fits in really well with the bass and the guitar. And it's got a slow, nice guitar solo in the middle of it that's just kind of a little bluesy guitar solo that I really enjoy. It's got a little spoken section in the middle where Morrison, tells his baby, don't be sad,
Yeah.
This song is almost like a promise, but it's almost like an apology, and it's almost like a pre-apology.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I love you. I'm not going to be untrue unless I am.
In which case, I'm sorry.
Yeah, in which case, I'm sorry. Don't be mad. Yeah. There's no reason. You're going to miss the best thing you ever had,
Yeah.
So it's an I love you, I'm sorry, I apologize in advance song. So yeah, it's a good song. I really enjoy it. I think with a little production put on it and straightened out a little bit, I think this would be an absolutely amazing song. I don't know if it would have been a hit just considering what kind of songs were out at the time, but it certainly is one of the Doors songs that I find, it was kind of neat for me to find them after being a fan of them for so many years, to hear this song and think there's still some stuff out there that's decent. And it's an excellent song, and I just wish we would have got a full version of it. The bad thing is there's just not much information on this song.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're not even going to hear it on the radio. You can find a couple versions of it on Spotify or Apple Music or something like that, but it's not one that casual Door fans or even, some of the more dedicated Doors fans are going to know. I mean, obviously the guys that are serious into the Doors and have to buy their 40th anniversaries and their 50th anniversaries and every remaster they make to buy all of it, like me, then you're going to hear this song, but it's just not real common.
I'm surprised for such an unfinished song, it's really high quality.
Yeah, it is. It has decent quality to it.
And that's just a good reflection on the band itself.
Yeah, from what I've read, I don't think they have a whole lot more to release. I mean, they were only in the studio for 4 years and they released 6 albums in 4 years, which is pretty much unheard of nowadays. But hopefully they do have a couple more gems like this in their catalog.
Be nice if they could, sweep up the cutting room floor and find something, right?
I'm sure they will for the 60th anniversary.
For sure.
So do you want to rate the song?
Let's rate it.
Song rating.
Okay, if this is your first episode, I'll explain our rating system briefly. It's 0 to 10, and 10 being the best. I put this one higher than I expected. I really like this song. I gave it an 8 because it's just a sweet little love song, super bluesy, very high quality, and it's just a real gentle love song, but it's got that complexity to it where I think you nailed it on the head, where it's like a preemptive apology with all these promises, and it's just got something about it that's real top shelf. So where do you put this one, Justin?
Yeah, we're pretty close. I rate this song at an 8.5. I think if this song was finished off and polished up and done, of course, you never know. Some songs that are done that way in the studio end up worse for the wear.
True.
That's one thing about a lot of these remixes and alternate takes that are coming out from these bands from the 60s and 70s is sometimes you hear the stripped down version and the regular version really well, and you hear the stripped down one and you're like, man, this is awesome. Why did they add all this to it? So it's hard to say because it's a pretty preemptive apology song. I enjoy it. So 8.5 for me.
Excellent. Yeah, sometimes you're right. Sometimes with the overworking of it, it's almost like, working on painting too much. It starts to twist all the colors into a gray blob. This one's just real sweet.
Yeah, there's something endearing about it, the way it's played out so simply.
I like it as raw as it is.
So that's the Doors and their hidden gem, I Will Never Be Untrue. If you agree, disagree, have any questions, comments, or concerns, please send them to us at classicvinylpodcast@gmail.com. We once again appreciate you listening to us. So until next time, we'll see you later.
Thank you so much for listening to Classic Vinyl Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Classic Vinyl Podcast for updates, and also share us with your music-loving friends.